So last night on Raw, something unexpected happened, and I want to talk about it. Jey Uso won the Intercontinental title from Bron Breakker in the main event of Raw. And I gotta talk about this because I have opinions on this. Now, first of all, the match was a lot of fun, and it was a very well put together match. And I think people who are studying wrestling or people who want to get into the business need to watch this match, because one of the things I noticed about this match, and a lot of this has to do with how over Jey Uso is. Jey Uso is incredibly popular right now. Like, you could make the argument that Jey right now is probably as popular as he's ever been since the Roman feud last summer. And that says something, because I'll be honest with you, he hasn't really done too many interesting things this year compared to last year. Let's just keep it a buck. The Jimmy match didn't go so well at WrestleMania. Then he had a very brief feud with Damian Priest. And there wasn't much else that he really did. I mean, when you look at the summer months, Jimmy was there, but he wasn't really involved in any real captivating stories. However, the thing about Jimmy Uso is that the Yeet thing got really over. He's very likable, and the fans are behind him. And clearly that was the case in this match, because I was looking at the match and I was just studying the fact that every time that Jey Uso made a comeback, or every time that Jey Uso had sort of that fire of the babyface, you know, the David versus Goliath story, where you have this guy, Bron Breakker, this athletic freak, you know, the descendant, the son of Rick Steiner, nephew of Scott Steiner. And, you know, those guys are legitimately tough guys here. And I'm sure Bron Breakker is too. Like, he is a legit tough guy. And he's in there smashing Jey. And even though he's the rookie sensation and Jey has more experience than him, his size, his strength, you know, were just too much for Jey. And that was the story of the match. And every time that Jey made a comeback, whether it be because Breakker made a mistake or just he's firing up, the crowd went more and more nuts. This needs to be studied, because this was very old school type, a very old school feel. You know, back in the day when the fans really believed, when the fans really, really believed in the characters, maybe they didn't believe wrestling was real, but they believed in the characters. This is how it felt. And I'll give you an example of this. Go to YouTube when you get a chance. Not saying it has to be right now. Finish this video first, of course. But watch Bruno Sammartino versus Larry Zbyszko from Madison Square Garden. Or watch the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express from the Sam Houston Coliseum. Both these matches are on YouTube. And look at the crowd. Every time that Bruno does an offensive move to Larry, because Larry was hated back in 1980 because he turned on Bruno in one of the greatest heel turns of all time. People hated this man, and they love Bruno. Every time that Bruno reverses a move or does an arm drag, the crowd just went insane. That's what this felt like. People were very behind Jey Uso, and that's genuinely difficult to do nowadays. You know what I mean? Because fans are too smart now. They know the business is a work, and they rarely sort of get sucked in, except for when it's a really good match. And this was a really good match, a very good TV main event. So Jey Uso is making these comebacks, and he finally hits like a big combination, a spear, the flying, the super kick, the spear, the flying Uso splash to get the 3 count. The place exploded. It was a great moment for Jey Uso to win his first singles title. However, I do have a concern, and that has to do with Bron Breakker. So let me explain. Bron Breakker, since coming up to the main roster, they've sort of tried to do a little bit of a Brock Lesnar type of booking with him, where he's just destroying people, relying on his naturally gifted athletic skills, his size, his strength, his power to just bully guys around. Because Ricochet is now in AEW, the WWE story is that, you know, Breakker beat him up so bad that he left the company. I mean, that's not really what happened. Obviously, you know that Ricochet just got a better deal from AEW. Still, you know, the story is that he was laid out and taken out by Bron Breakker. And then, of course, we have the Dragunov series. Then we have the Sami Zayn series. Now, Sami Zayn beat Bron Breakker. And I thought that when Sami Zayn beat Bron Breakker, I genuinely thought that was done to sort of tell the story that Bron Breakker was inexperienced, to tell the story that Bron Breakker was unprepared for Sami Zayn, and that led to his demise. So I think that's why they, in the rematch, Bron Breakker killed Sami Zayn, because he learned from his mistakes and went in there and just became a killer. In this match, it also feels like Jey outsmarted him, because he was going to go for the big spear, and then Jey super kicked him on the way in. Very similar to how Cody kicked Roman when he did his spear that led to the finish at WrestleMania 40. But I'm not sure, and I'm thinking about this right now, and I want your comments, obviously. I want to know what you think. I'm not sure if it was the right time for Bron Breakker to drop this title. Like, genuinely. Look, I love how over Jey Uso is. I love that the fans were sent home happy. And I love that it was a really, really great match. Told a great story. No argument there. But if the whole purpose of booking Bron Breakker to be this monster was to be a seemingly unstoppable force in the same vein as a Lesnar, a Goldberg, or even a Gunther more recently, is losing to Jey Uso now the right move? And I have done videos where I've criticized Triple H's booking, even though I do like it more than I hate it. There are flaws in his booking, and I do think that 2023 was probably stronger booked than 2024, in my opinion. I'm not saying that he sucks or anything like that. It's just the booking felt more inspired a year ago. So, with Jey, it's a difficult topic for me. Because, me being genuine, like, yes, it was a great moment. And in the short term, the fans that were in the building there and the ones that supported Jey, like, it was a big victory. Very, very big victory. One of the biggest of his career, maybe. You could make that argument. And that's good. But what about Bron Breakker? What about what they want to do with him? I want to say, unless something comes out today or we find out that he failed like a wellness test or something like that, I don't think this is the end of Bron Breakker. I'm not saying he's not going to become the big star that everybody thinks he can become, because he certainly has a lot of gifts. Without question, he's a very gifted athlete. But was this the right time? Was it a short-term gain, long-term pain? Would it have been better to have kept the title on Bron Breakker and then done this exact same match, this exact same title change, maybe 6 months down the road or maybe 8 months down the road? Would that have been a better option? Would that have been the option? That way you can build up Jey longer and you can make Bron Breakker look like he's even more of an unstoppable force. And it also could be that the story here is for Jey to inspire Sami to try to beat Gunther at Bad Blood, because there was also that little, sort of cross-threading of the storylines. That was there. And I don't think Sami's going to beat Gunther. I think Sami beat him at WrestleMania and Gunther gets his win back here. It just seems that way. I don't think Sami's going to win the title just yet, even though at some point I feel like he will, maybe to make up for what he didn't get in Montreal. I could be wrong about that. But I was thinking maybe it would have been better if Jey beat Sami. Maybe that would have been a better story. I don't know. It's something to think about. But was it too soon for Bron Breakker to drop this title? And is this going to hurt his momentum? Again, I don't think he's finished. I think they could very easily rehab him to get wins back and to become a monster. It can be done. People believe in Bron Breakker. Not as much as Joe Hendry, but they believe. Either way, the match was really, really good. The finish was really, really satisfying, And I enjoyed it. But long term, I'm not sure if it was the right move. Like, legit, I don't know if this was the right move to make right now. So, I don't know. I guess time will tell on this one. What do you think about the Jey Uso title win? Do you think it was the right time, or do you think that they should have kept the title on Bron Breakker for a little bit longer, a few more months, and then done this later. But again, something else we have to keep in mind, and let me know in the comments below, but I want to keep this in mind. We don't know the future. We don't know what Triple H's plans are, what WWE's plans are with Jey and Bron Breakker in the future. It could very well be a thing where this is being done on purpose to tell a story with Bron Breakker and with Jey Uso. And maybe it didn't feel like hotshot booking, but time will tell on that, because it might not be that. And I talked about how some of the recent booking going into Bad Blood and Bash in Berlin were sort of uninspired. Like the title matches had very weak build-ups, and it feels like Triple H is booking the big shows out and not so much thinking about the smaller shows. That's the vibe that I get, right? So is that what happened here? Is it a situation where they made the call and say, okay, well, Jay's super over, let's switch the belts? Because that may have happened. And if so, that's okay. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. But it's also a decision that's questionable because of the way they want to push Bron Breakker. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below.